Jammu and Kashmir had the unique distinction of being the only Muslim majority state in India, with about 67% of the population following Islam. I use the past tense because it is no longer a state, after the Articles 35A and 370 were made inoperative in August 2019. But anyway, there is a catch in this demographic equation. While the Kashmir Valley is about 97% Muslim, Hindus constitute the majority of Jammu's population at around 65% mark. The state is internally divided along religious lines, and though the establishment has worked hard for decades to propagate the myth of love, peace and brotherhood between the two regions and religions, the reality is far from rosy. In 1947, after a tumultuous period that saw the Pak army and ISI-backed tribal militia from Pakistan wreak havoc in the state, the people of Jammu had hoped that after acceding to the Union of India, our state would evolve as a secular democratic state in a secular democratic India. But our naive optimism was quashed as soon as the Nehru regime arbitrarily handed over the entire state to a party whose commitment to Muslim separatist politics was well known. The people of Jammu have since been treated as second-class citizens in our own state. This is our story, a story you have never been told. As most people are aware now, Jammu and Kashmir had its own separate constitution till August 2019. And because of Article 370 and 35A, it operated as a non-secular, theocratic, hegemonic Islamic state within the secular territory of India. In the beginning, the elected head of the state was called the Prime Minister and not the Chief Minister, as was the norm everywhere else. Thankfully, the nomenclature was corrected in due course. But regardless of what the person at the top was called, he or she always happened to be a Muslim from Kashmir, with the exception of Ghulam Nabi Azad, 2005 to 2008. Who is also a Muslim from Doda. The idea of having a Hindu or a non-Muslim from Jammu as the chief minister of the state was unthinkable. This was, of course, by design. The monopoly on state power enabled the separatist politicians of the valley to deny the rights of Hindu refugees from Pakistan-occupied Jammu and West Pakistan as equal citizens of the state. In 1990, they got away with orchestrating the murder, rape and eviction of Hindus in Kashmir, a full-blown ethnocide and cultural genocide. With the connivance of the topmost politicians of the valley, Pakistan successfully converted Kashmiri society into a paramilitary society and armed them to wage war against the Indian nation and its representatives in the valley, the Kashmiri Hindus. It is interesting that the terror organization at the forefront of the demand for Kashmir's so-called Azadi is called the Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front, implying that it somehow had the authority to speak on behalf of people of Jammu. To be clear, we the people of Jammu have nothing but contempt for who they are and what they stand for. But the inclusion of Jammu in their name points to the plans they have for Jammu, its takeover and Islamization. The strategy? Silent demographic invasion. In 2001, Farooq Abdullah passed the insidious Roshni Act, and this sinister plan continued to be implemented by his successors, including Mufti Muhammad Sayyid, Ghulam Nabi Azad, Umar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti. Under this act, the illegal takeover of government lands in Jammu was legitimized, especially if the offender happened to be a Muslim. In this way, lakhs of canals of lands were given to Muslims in Jammu. A public interest litigation filed by me in J&K High Court challenging the constitutional validity of the Roshni Act has forced the authorities to acknowledge the unconstitutional nature of this act, and the courts state its operation in 2014. Lately, the act also stands annulled but the damage of 18 years will be impossible to reverse. There are non-state actors involved too. People and NGOs from the valley are spending money to settle Rohingyas and Bangladeshi Muslims in Jammu and to fund global PR campaigns that paint them as victims. They have even filed an application for arraigning Rohingyas, who are illegal immigrants and non-citizens, as parties in a public interest litigation filed in the High Court seeking their eviction from Jammu. Their prayer in the petition is that Rohingyas should be allowed to settle here in Jammu, not in Kashmir. Similarly, Indian Muslims from outside the state are being encouraged to move to Jammu. With the aid and support of Hawala money from the Gulf, groups like Allah Wale are paying almost twice the actual value of the land to help these outsiders settle in Jammu. Apart from monetary aid, these outsiders are illegally registered as Hindu migrants and are given all incentives and SOPs that are reserved for Kashmiri Pandit refugees. Flouting all service rules, Patwaris from Kashmir were transferred to Jammu in violation of service rules with the sole motive of managing lands in Hindu areas for outside Muslims. 3 petitions in this regard have already been filed in the J&K High Court. Other than the shameless land grab, there is a long-standing attempt to clandestinely capture as many government posts in Jammu as possible. There are numerous cases of fraud, forgery, and scams in recruitment and admission that are currently being investigated. What is common in all of them is the end goal of benefiting Muslims at the expense of more deserving and meritorious Hindu candidates. As if they didn't have enough power already, we have reason to believe that the state government interfered in the 2011 census and fudged the data so as to influence the planned delimitation of constituencies in a way that furthers the hegemony of the valley over the affairs of the whole region. But the most demonic of all conspiracies was the 2018 Kathua murder, in which the state agencies botched up the investigation of the murder and alleged rape of a young Muslim girl and framed 7 Hindu villagers of Rasana. A year and a half later, a Jammu court directed the J&K police to file a case against the 6 policemen who were part of the SIT probing Kathua rape murder case. Why were these villagers framed? Because they resisted the demographic invasion of Jammu by influencing the villagers not to sell off their lands to these shady outsiders. Kathua happens to be Hindu majority and is a great obstacle in the infiltration efforts from across the border. If all that I have narrated doesn't shock you out of your complacency, nothing ever will. Demography is destiny, and our destiny is in your hands. Jammu is called the city of temples, and by virtue of its demography, it has stood unwaveringly for the nation's integrity. It is time for the rest of the country to stand up for us. This is Ankur Sharma for Upward.